Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. I knew the second my mom opened the door that something was wrong. Her eyes didn't light up, her mouth stayed flat, tight. No hug, no welcome home, nothing. Just this pause, like she'd been hoping I wouldn't actually show up. I said, "Hi, Mom." I forced a smile, clutching my bag like I was still 13 and coming home after a fight at school. Behind her, my dad stood in the hallway, arms crossed. He looked like he'd been waiting too, but not in a good way. "My name's Sarah. I'm 31. I grew up in Fairview, Ohio. Haven't been back in 6 years." Quick note, before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. The driveway was still covered in dead leaves, even though it hadn't rained in days. The air had that sharp, early November bite, the kind that clings to your clothes. I'd just driven 8 hours from Indianapolis thinking I'd finally be able to patch things up with them. I had this whole speech in my head. I even brought a stupid photo album. "Why don't you come in?" she asked, but her voice didn't mean it. I stepped inside. It smelled like lemon cleaner and burnt toast. Same as always. But everything felt smaller, like the walls were closing in around me. Then Dad said, "Sarah, we need to talk." He nodded toward the couch like I was some client they were firing. "Okay." Mom stayed standing. "We've thought a lot about this. And we've decided it's best if you don't come around anymore." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" Dad's face didn't flinch. "You've made your choices, you left, you never came back. And now, well, your mother and I think it's best to keep it that way." I laughed. It just came out. "So I'm not welcome in my own house?" "This isn't your house," Mom snapped, sharper than I expected. "Not anymore." I looked at her like she'd slapped me. My stomach turned. "You're seriously doing this? After everything?" Dad moved toward the door. "It's better this way, Sarah. Please leave." I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came out. I stared at them, my own parents, like they were strangers. I stepped back onto the porch. Cold wind hit me in the face. Mom didn't say anything. Dad closed the door without looking at me. The click of the deadbolt echoed like a slap. I stood there, bag in hand, staring at the wood grain on the door, like maybe it'd open again. Then the porch light went off. I turned and walked down the steps, boots crunching the gravel. I didn't look back. By the time I found the apartment, I'd burned through most of what I'd left in my checking account. It sat above a busted laundromat that hadn't seen a fresh coat of paint since the late 90s. The sign out front said, "Superwash," but half the letters were missing, so it just read, SRWSH. Fitting. The stairs leading up creaked so loud I thought they'd collapse under me. But the landlord, a guy named Marvin who wore flip-flops year-round and smelled like salami, handed me the key and said, "It's yours if you want it. $480 a month, cash only." I nodded. "I'll take it." The apartment was small, one room, barely bigger than my old bedroom. Cracked linoleum, yellow walls, and a heater that made more noise than heat. There was a tiny kitchen shoved in the corner and a bathroom with no door, just a curtain. But it had a roof and a lock, and I needed both. I had 2 boxes, one with clothes, the other with the few things I didn't pawn. Some framed photos, my grandma's old Bible, and the sewing machine she left me when she passed. The machine was heavy, scratched up, and the cord was frayed near the plug, but it still ran like a champ. I set it up on a folding table by the one window that didn't stick shut. I tightened the bolts, wiped down the wheel, and plugged it in. The hum it made when I pressed the pedal, low and steady, felt like the only familiar sound I had left. Nights were quiet, too quiet. The street below went dark by 10. Nobody walked around here unless they had a reason. No music, no kids. Just the occasional siren and the buzz from the street lamp that blinked like it couldn't make up its mind. I put up a little corkboard above the machine, tacked up scraps of fabric, notes to myself, job flyers, anything to keep me focused. The first thing I worked on was a pair of jeans a neighbor dropped off. She needed the hem shortened. I charged her $8. After that, someone else asked if I could patch a jacket. Then a zipper on a backpack. I took everything, no matter how small. I worked with a flashlight clipped to the edge of the table when the overhead flickered too much. Some nights, my fingers cramped so bad I had to tape 2 together just to keep stitching. I ate whatever was cheap. Canned soup, rice, peanut butter. I boiled eggs 3 at a time and rationed them out like they were gold. Coffee, gone. Shampoo, dollar store brand. I cut my own hair in the bathroom mirror with a pair of kitchen scissors, But every time I slid a finished job into a plastic bag and handed it off, I felt something shift in me. Like maybe I wasn't completely broken, like I still had some value. One night, I got a call from a dry cleaner a few blocks away. Said he'd heard I was decent with repairs, asked if I could help out with some overflow. You fast? He asked. Fast enough? I said. I took the gig. Suddenly, I had a small pile of work every week. Fix this, patch that, take this in, let that out. Nothing glamorous, nothing anyone would post about. But it paid. Barely. I turned one of my boxes into a drawer for thread spools, taped an envelope to the wall for receipts, set a mason jar on the window ledge, and every time I got paid in cash, I put a few bucks in there. Didn't touch it, just watched it grow. It wasn't much, but it was mine. One night, around 2 in the morning, I finished a jacket that had 3 holes and a busted zipper. I zipped it up smooth, folded it clean, and set it on the table. I looked around the room, peeling paint, buzzing heater, floor that sloped in one corner. And I didn't feel sad. I felt capable. Then I rolled my shoulders, cracked my neck, and grabbed the next project. I finished that jacket, stuffed it in a bag, and set it by the door for delivery the next morning. The apartment went quiet again, just the low hum of the fridge and the ticking of the cheap plastic clock I got from the thrift store for $1. Silence wasn't peaceful. It scraped at me. I didn't have a TV. Couldn't afford internet. I'd put off buying shampoo last week just so I could grab a pack of needles. Every penny had a job now, and if it didn't, it went into the jar in the closet. It was shoved behind an old hoodie I didn't wear anymore, sitting on the floor like a secret. I told myself I wouldn't touch it unless I was desperate. Still, that didn't stop me from counting it some nights, just to feel like I wasn't sinking. I cut back on everything. No more delivery, no more drinks, no more coffee. God, I missed coffee. I bought beans once just to sniff the bag like some sad weirdo in the cereal aisle. My grocery runs turned surgical. Cheap bread, eggs when they weren't ridiculous, frozen vegetables, rice, peanut butter. I made it stretch. Some weeks I barely made it at all. I started cutting my hair in the mirror once a month, pulled it into a ponytail, chopped the ends, hoped for the best. My hands weren't steady like they were with fabric. I looked rough. But who was I trying to impress? Nights were the worst. That's when everything got louder. Memories, regrets, the space between who I used to be and what I was now. I'd lie on the floor with my phone in my hand, scrolling back through old texts from my mom. Some were just reminders. Don't forget to get your oil changed. Or dumb updates like, found that recipe for the lemon cake you like. Stuff that didn't mean much at the time. Now I read them like they were gospel. One night, I found a photo she'd sent me of the backyard after Dad had finally replaced the old swing set. There was a joke under it. Something about how the grass grew better now that I wasn't there to kill it. I remember laughing when I got it. I stared at that message for 20 minutes, waiting for it to feel like something warm, something real. It didn't. It felt like a lie now. A nice one, but still a lie. Like she'd been playing at being a mom until she didn't feel like it anymore. I kept reading, hoping I'd find the moment things changed. The exact sentence where she turned. There wasn't one. Just silence after the day I left. I locked my phone and threw it across the mattress. It bounced off the blanket and landed on the floor with a soft thud. I didn't pick it up. The next day, I patched a hole in a work coat and charged $12. I bought dish soap and a loaf of bread. The rest went into the jar. That night, I stitched up a bridesmaid dress some lady had ripped on a nail. I didn't ask how. I didn't care. I finished it by 1 in the morning, folded it, and leaned back in my chair, fingers sore and my lower back aching from sitting too long. I kept telling myself I was doing fine, that surviving was enough. But there were nights I stared at the ceiling and wondered if this was it, not forever. Just now. Was this my now? I rolled over and pulled the blanket up to my chin. The heater buzzed like it was ready to die, but at least it worked. I closed my eyes, but I didn't sleep. I didn't sleep that night, but I got up anyway. There was a pair of slacks waiting on my table, and if I didn't get them hemmed by noon, I wouldn't see the $10 the guy promised. Money like that mattered. I put on a hoodie, tied my hair up with a rubber band, and got to work. That was the morning I stopped dragging myself through the days. I leaned into it instead. The old man who ran the dry cleaner kept sending stuff my way. Then his niece asked if I could take in her prom dress. Then her friend wanted hers done too. Word spread faster than I thought it would. People started showing up at my door. One guy brought me 5 pairs of uniform pants with grease stains and busted seams. Said he worked nights at a garage and kept getting snagged on the lifts. I fixed them all by the weekend. He came back the next week with more and told his buddies about me. Suddenly, I had a full bag of dirty, ripped up work clothes every Monday. I didn't ask questions, I just stitched. That jar in the closet? It started filling faster. At first, I dropped ones and fives, then tens. One time, I had to shove in a folded up 20. I stood there holding it, almost scared to let go, like it might disappear the second I blinked. I pushed it into the glass and put the hoodie back over the top. The apartment was still loud in the wrong places. Pipes knocking, heater buzzing, the ice tray cracking in the freezer, but my sewing machine had its own sound, a rhythm I could depend on. When I pressed the pedal, it answered. No hesitation. Just hum, snip, hum again. I started leaving the window cracked, even when it was cold. Let the fresh air cut through the stale heat. Sometimes neighbors heard the machine going late into the night and would knock. "You're the girl who sews, right?" That's how they said it. The girl who sews. I nodded. Took the job. No need for a handshake. I made business cards with a Sharpie and tape. Tacked them up at the corner store, on the laundromat door downstairs, even at the gas station by the highway. Simple. Alterations and repairs. Fast, cheap, reliable. Ask for Sarah upstairs. One day, a woman brought in a wedding dress, said it belonged to her mother and she wanted to wear it but couldn't afford to take it anywhere else. "Can you do it?" she asked, voice small. I looked it over. Yellowed lace, torn hem. Zipper stuck halfway up. I nodded. "Yeah, I can do it." She started crying, right there in my hallway. I didn't say anything. Just let her cry and then got to work. It took 3 days. I fixed everything. Pressed the fabric, stitched by hand, even added a button detail she didn't ask for. When she came back and saw it, she covered her mouth and hugged me. I charged her $20. She tried to give me more. I didn't take it. That night, I sat down at the machine with nothing left to fix. Just me, the lamp, and the soft hum of the motor. I stared at the table for a minute, then pulled out a scrap of denim and just started sewing for no reason. Not for money, not for a deadline, just because I wanted to. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was building something, stitch by stitch, and I wasn't scared of the silence now. I leaned forward, grabbed my chalk pencil, and started sketching a new seam line. I was sketching that new seam line when I realized I was almost out of chalk. I made a list, chalk, thread, some buttons, and figured I'd hit the farmer's market early before the Saturday rush hit full force. The air smelled like rain, even though the sky was clear. It was one of those weird Ohio mornings where the breeze felt like fall but the sun still hit you like August. I grabbed my tote and walked down, cutting through the back alley past the old church. The market was already buzzing. People with baby strollers, old couples with reusable bags, college kids sampling cheese they couldn't afford. I made my rounds, grabbed eggs, a small loaf of sourdough, some discount carrots from a vendor I liked. Then I saw them. Mom was holding a tomato in one hand and talking to a vendor about ripeness, like she always used to. Dad stood next to her, arms crossed, that same bored expression he always had in public. Like he was there for her, not for the actual errand. My feet stopped moving before my brain caught up. They were maybe 20 feet away, close enough to hear them, close enough for them to see me, if they looked. But they didn't. Not even a glance, not even a flicker of recognition. She turned slightly, said something I couldn't hear, then laughed. That laugh. I hadn't heard it in over 5 years, and here she was, giving it away like it meant nothing. I stood there frozen with my bag in one hand and a bunch of green onions in the other. My chest tightened, my ears rang. Then anger crept in, fast and sharp. They hadn't changed. Same clothes, same posture, same look on their faces like they belonged to a cleaner, better world, one I'd been cut out of without warning. I wanted to walk up to them and say, "Hey, look at me. I'm not a kid anymore. I built something. Without you." I wanted to throw the stupid onions on the ground and ask what the hell I'd done that was so unforgivable. But I didn't. I was too proud. I adjusted my grip on the bag and turned the other way, walking fast through the crowd. A vendor tried to offer me a sample of jam, but I didn't even look up. I made it to the edge of the market and kept walking until the voices and tents were behind me. My hands were shaking. My throat felt raw. I got back to the apartment, dropped the bag on the counter, and walked straight to the closet. Pulled the hoodie aside. There it was, the jar. I picked it up and held it tight in both hands. It was heavy now, coins stacked to the top, bills folded and packed in. Tangible proof of every single stitch, every hour I'd spent hunched over that machine. They hadn't seen me, But I'd seen myself. I'd carried myself through this. Still, that didn't stop the sting. The old pain was right there under the surface. Same as ever. Like a bruise that hadn't healed, just got used to being pressed. I set the jar back down, pulled out some chalk from the paper bag, and returned to the table. The sketch was still there, half finished. The lines weren't perfect, but neither was I. Didn't matter. I picked up the pencil again and kept drawing. I kept sketching that seam line until the lead wore down and the paper smudged. I was tired, still mad, but something about holding that pencil again grounded me. The machine waited, the jar stayed tucked in its place, and I didn't need anyone to tell me what came next. A week later, I walked into a real estate office with a backpack full of cash, a list of foreclosed properties, and no one at my side. The guy at the desk, Tony, looked me up and down like he didn't know what to make of me. "You sure you want that place?" he asked, flipping through a file. "It's a mess," I nodded. "I'm sure." The house sat just outside town, right past the last gas station, and before the road dipped into cornfields. It was squat, ugly, and forgotten, like someone had started fixing it 20 years ago and gave up halfway through. The porch leaned. The paint peeled off in strips. The grass was up to my knees, and the mailbox had been duct-taped shut. It was perfect. Tony handed me the keys after I signed the paperwork. No cosigner, no family listed. Just Sarah Miller printed across every page in bold ink. "You really paying all cash?" he asked. "I really am," I said deadpan. He shrugged, handed over the folder, and left without asking a single personal question. That alone made him my favorite person that month. I drove out there that night, parked under a tree, and just sat in the car with the engine off, staring at the crooked roofline like it was daring me to come in. I walked up the porch. 3 boards creaked, 1 cracked, and turned the key in the door. It stuck at first. Figures. But it opened. The inside smelled like wet carpet and dust. There were cobwebs in the corners, old stains on the walls, and a weird green toilet in the bathroom that leaned sideways when I touched it. But it was mine. No one could lock me out. No one could tell me I didn't belong. I stood in the living room, empty-handed, wide-eyed, and just breathed. First full breath I'd taken in years. The next day, I brought over my sewing machine and the jar from the closet. I set the machine on the kitchen counter and placed the jar right in the middle of the empty windowsill. That jar had paid for the house. Every ripped sleeve, every patched pair of work pants, every late night with a busted zipper and sore shoulders. That was the down payment. That was the victory. I didn't have a contractor, couldn't afford one. So I did what I knew how to do, learned as I went. I borrowed tools from the guy at the laundromat, watched hours of DIY videos at the library, taught myself how to patch drywall, regrout tile, and rip out old carpet without choking on dust. I painted one wall at a time, white, then soft gray. I fixed a leaky faucet by trial and error, and cussed through the whole thing. I sanded the porch railing until the skin peeled off my palms, then stained it with a cheap brush I reused from a furniture job. I hung blackout curtains in the bedroom and laid down a thrift store rug to muffle the echo. Every screw, every nail, every dollar came out of that same slow hustle I'd started above the laundromat. The house started changing in pieces, just like I had. Neighbors waved when they saw me on the porch. One guy stopped to ask if I needed help with the gutters. I told him no, but I appreciated it. At night, I'd sit on the floor with my legs crossed, sewing machine in front of me, fabric in hand, lamp clipped to a chair. Same work, same hum. But now the room held my voice when I talked to myself. It bounced back. It sounded like it belonged there. One night, I stood outside, looking up at the front of the house. The paint still peeled in spots, and the roof needed replacing. But I saw it different now. It didn't look broken anymore. It looked like a beginning. I walked back inside and shut the door behind me. I shut the front door behind me and was halfway through locking it when my phone buzzed in my back pocket. I figured it was Diane or maybe a client needing a last-minute hem. I didn't even look at the screen when I answered. "Hello?" Silence. Then a voice I hadn't heard in 5 years. "Sarah?" I stopped breathing. "Hi, honey, it's Mom." I didn't say anything. I just stood there in the hallway, door still half locked, keys in my hand, phone pressed tight against my ear like it could run away. "I know it's been a long time," she said softly. "Too long." She sounded small, not like the woman who told me to leave and never come back. This voice was different, tired, shaky, unsure. "What do you want?" I asked, flat. She took a breath. "Your dad and I, We've had a rough year. Some things didn't go the way we planned. I didn't respond. We're in a tough spot, she went on, financially. We had to leave the house a few weeks ago. We're staying with a friend right now, but it's temporary, not ideal. I could already see where it was going. And, I asked, we were wondering if maybe you'd let us stay with you, just for a little while, until we get back on our feet. I leaned against the wall, heartbeat pounding in my ears. You kicked me out, I said. Told me I wasn't welcome in my own family. I know, she whispered. And I was wrong. We were both wrong. But we're trying to make things right. We don't have anyone else, Sarah. That part hit harder than I wanted it to. No one else. Just me. After everything. I'll think about it, I said. But I'm not promising anything. I understand, she replied. Thank you. Just thinking about it means more than you know. She hung up before I could say anything else. I stood there in the hall for a full minute, phone still in my hand, heart still racing. It felt like being 16 again. After school, kitchen light on, mom humming while dad watched the news. Normal. Easy. Like maybe the last 5 years had just been a long nightmare I'd finally woken up from. But then I remembered that porch, the door, the way it slammed shut like it meant it. I put my phone on the counter and walked into the living room, pacing circles around the coffee table. My hands wouldn't stop moving. Fists, then open, then fists again. What if this was the moment things finally came back together? What if it was just another trap? I wanted to believe her. I wanted it so bad my throat ached. But something in her voice didn't sit right. It was flat, hollow, like someone reading a script, not talking to their daughter. That night, I laid in bed staring at the ceiling. The fan spun slow above me, and the house creaked in all its usual places. But I couldn't settle. The call looped in my head. The way she said, "We don't have anyone else." The way she never once said, "I miss you." Or "I'm sorry for how we treated you," just that they were in a bind. Just that they needed a place. I closed my eyes, but sleep never came. By sunrise, I was still wide awake, lying stiff in bed with my eyes open, staring at nothing. My brain wouldn't shut up. I kept hearing her voice over and over, all sugar and soft tones, like she hadn't carved me out of her life without blinking. I sat up and grabbed my phone off the nightstand. Diane was the only person I trusted with the truth. She'd been around since college, seen me go through everything, every panic call, every bounce between jobs, every dollar I saved for that damn jar. She answered after 2 rings. "Sarah, everything okay?" "No," I said. "Not really." I told her about the call, every word. The voice, the phrasing, the way my mom hadn't said "I'm sorry" or "I miss you." Just the part about needing a place to crash. Diane didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she asked, "You want me to check into it?" "I don't know. Maybe. Something's off." "All right," she said. "Give me a couple hours. I'll see what I can find." She worked part-time for a property management company and had friends in collections, so I knew if something was out there, she'd dig it up. By noon, she called me back. "You sitting down?" she asked. "Number just say it." She sighed. "Your parents were evicted 6 weeks ago. Certified notice. Sheriff came to the house. They haven't paid utilities in months. Their credits tanked, and that's not the worst part." I waited. "Your dad tried applying for a line of credit. 2, actually. You were listed as a reference on both. One of them even had your address down as a backup contact." My stomach dropped. "What?" "Yeah. One of the apps said he'd been living with you. For 6 months. That's fraud, Sarah." I gripped the counter to keep from punching the wall. "I didn't sign anything." "You don't have to," Diane said. "He just wrote your info down. They check boxes, maybe call. But if he had your name and address, that's enough to fake stability." "They didn't call me," I muttered. "Maybe they will. Or maybe he used it hoping no one would verify." My hands were shaking now. My jaw clenched so tight my teeth hurt. "They didn't want a second chance," I said. "They wanted a bailout." Diane didn't argue. "I'm sorry." I wanted to scream, break something. But instead, I just stood there with the phone pressed to my ear, listening to the hum of my own anger. "This isn't the first time either," she added quietly. "Your mom borrowed money from her cousin Sheila years ago, told her it was for car repairs, then ghosted her after cashing the check. She never told me that." Number she wouldn't. I walked into the living room, paced hard from one side to the other, fists balled up at my sides. "They came back because they thought I was weak," I said. Because they figured I'd be so desperate for their attention, I'd let them in without asking questions. Diane's voice stayed calm. But you didn't. You called me instead. That's something. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. You gonna call them back? She asked. I don't know yet, I said, but I'm not letting them in. That's done. Good, she said. You don't owe them a damn thing. We hung up and I stood in the middle of the room, heart pounding, air thick around me. They didn't just want help, they wanted to slip into my life like none of it ever happened. Like I was still some desperate girl waiting on their approval. They underestimated me. I looked at the window where the sewing machine sat. The sun hit the table just right, lighting up the worn metal and faded paint. The same machine I'd rebuilt my life with, stitch by stitch. I walked over and touched it, just to remind myself it was real. They hadn't built any of this. I had. I was still standing at the window, hand on the sewing machine, when I heard a car door slam outside. I stepped onto the porch, squinting against the afternoon glare. It was them. My mom stood there in a tan coat like she was going to church. My dad leaned against the hood of a car that looked borrowed. I didn't move. I didn't say a word. They walked up like nothing had happened. Sarah, Mom said, smiling like she was showing up for brunch. We were in the area. My dad cut right to it. We've been thinking. This house, it's a good opportunity. You could sell it. We could all split the profit. Maybe even get something bigger, together. I didn't blink. No. He frowned. Just hear us out. I did, I said. I heard you when you used my name on a credit app and lied about living here. Mom's face went pale. We were desperate. Then be desperate somewhere else. Dad's tone shifted fast. You think you're too good for us now? We raised you. No, you controlled me. Then you threw me out when I stopped playing along. He stepped forward. It's just a house, Sarah. No, I said, pulling out the printouts I had ready. It's my house, bought with my money, and I already spoke to a lawyer. You try anything, I'll press charges for fraud. I handed him the paper with the credit app. His eyes flicked over it. I saw the color drain from his face, then the anger rush right back in. We didn't mean any harm, Mom said quickly. You thought I'd be the same girl who begged to come home. I'm not. The porch was dead silent. They looked smaller now. Not broken, just exposed. I built this from nothing, I said. While you ignored me. While you told me I didn't belong. Mom opened her mouth, but I was already backing toward the door. We're done here. I stepped inside and shut the door before they could answer. This time, I locked it without shaking. I didn't flinch at the sound of gravel crunching as they walked back to the car. I looked around my living room. The scuffed floor, the mismatched chair, the table I'd sanded with my own hands. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And no one, not even the people who gave me life, was going to take it from me.